Blyth Power Station, one of the most famous landmarks in the northeast of England. Michael Caine's Get Carter movie was made against this backdrop. So too was Aliens 3. But this time, the site's not under attack by creatures from outer space, but it's almost that frightening. It's a setting for one of the biggest synchronized demolitions ever attempted. Four massive concrete chimneys stand between success or failure for one of Britain's best explosive demolition companies, the Controlled Demolition Group. Dick Green, Mick Williams, and Holly Bennett are all here. It's a tough mission, but one thing that might be on their side is that they've done demolitions in Blyth before. Last time, it was the transfer tower and conveyors that fell by the wayside.
It's dropped really perfectly. The conveyors are just laid here that we dropped down, the tower's right over. It's pulled the long conveyor, it launched that straight over, directly in line. It hadn't damaged the buildings right at the side, so absolutely spot on for us.
If the saying "you're only as good as your last job" is true, then the team have got nothing to fear. But a great track record is no guarantee for the future. The four chimneys weigh a total of 20,000 tons. These here are 140 meters tall, but that's nothing compared to the other two, which are 170 meters tall. For over 40 years, these chimneys have dominated the horizon, but they're not alone. Right next door is the new power station, pylons and local houses, all at risk if there's even a slightest error. Not only that, there's just 4 days left till the high noon deadline on Sunday. The team's plan is to detonate the chimneys in the following sequence. To be effective, they'll place explosives on the front wall inside each one. On firing, the explosives will detonate to blast the section clean off. The result? The chimney should fall in the direction where the hole used to be. But there are concerns.
If the chimneys went the wrong way, you can imagine a structure 450, 500 foot falling in the wrong direction, and obviously anything in its way would be crushed. So if it fell the wrong way and hit the pylon lines, it would take the pylon lines out. If it fell and hit a house, it would demolish a house.
We've got to make sure we press the button on number 3 before number 2 hits the deck, in case it splatters any concrete sideways as it strikes the floor and cuts any of the tubes leading to it. If that did happen, and number 3 didn't fire and number 4 fired, so we're going to have number 4 crashing into number 3 full of explosives, which we can't have happen.
So here's how they'll do it. Drill it. Fill it. Link it. Wrap it. Blow it.
Working with explosives is good, obviously it sounds sexy. I would say it's probably 5% sexy, 95% dust, asbestos, pigeon droppings, hypodermic needles, things like that. So it's good when we do the blowdown, that's a great part of it. Getting there sometimes, you do get them, what am I doing here moments.
Day 1, and explosives engineer Dick Green has just arrived at work and is examining the site of the test blast to make sure they've got their calculations right.
What the lads are doing now is they're drilling holes inside the chimney. Now we've marked out that the chimney, we have to take more than half the base circumference out for it to topple forward. So we've marked that out now, and we're going to blow a big mouth here in the front of the chimney in the direction of fall. So when that concrete is removed, the stability's gone from the front and it will start moving forward.
The explosives will be arranged in the chimney in the following pattern. During the demolition, this front area will be blasted forward, allowing each one to fall towards the ground.
Scruffy gag. Put it in your pocket.
Meanwhile, explosives engineer Holly Bennett is keeping the men in line.
She'd make a good wife, wouldn't she? Anybody single?
And it's her job to make sure they keep up the daunting schedule of drilling work.
On the smaller chimneys, we've had to drill about 650 holes in each, obviously determined by the hole spacings on the test blast and what explosives we need in there. So there's about 650 on the smaller two and about 950 on the two bigger ones.
Around 3,000 holes. It's essential work to make sure the chimneys fall in the right direction, but it's painstakingly slow. To blast the front section off each chimney, the team used two types of explosives. They're using a total of 140 kilograms of jelly mix, linked with 3,000 meters of det cord.
So basically, we've got the detonating cord down the hole, and then what we'll do is we'll put in a proportion of a 100 gram stick of jelly mix. That'll be the primary explosive, if you like, and that'll go down the hole. We'll link all these tails up together, and then when we initiate it, all these tails will go off simultaneously. That goes off at between 6,000 and 8,000 meters a second. So all the charges will go off simultaneously and take out the section from the front of the chimney.
As Holly works on, senior explosives engineer Mick Williams, who's on another job, knows the chimneys are in safe hands.
The knowledge she's gained in a short period of time, it's unreal. She's qualified shot firer now, she's qualified in quarrying, which is more than me as well. But she picks things up very quickly. She's a really bright girl.
The job's progressing well, but they're not only battling against the deadline, they're also battling against the elements.
No matter what the weather's like today up in the northeast, no matter how windy, how rainy, how foggy it gets, we've got to carry on working, and we've got to ensure that these 4 chimneys are ready for 12 o'clock on Sunday. So we just have to work through it.
And work through it they do. It's the end of a grueling day, but there's no let-up as explosives are still being added to the hundreds of holes. Day 2, 9 o'clock in the morning. The weather's improved and Mick's arrived on site.
It's taken a lot more time than I thought it was going to do, tell you the truth, but just difficult access. We're doing a fair bit of work off ladders and things like that, which does slow down the charging period.
The team are still up against it. It's 72 hours till D-Day, and there's no let-up in the heavy workload. Midway through the day, they finally start putting up the first layer of protection.
What we've got here is a conveyor belt which is about 15-20 mil thick, laid down the length of the chimney where we're blasting it, so that when we set off the detonation, it'll restrict the fly that comes out of the chimney. And there are a few properties still within the complex that have got glass windows, and what we don't want to do is have pieces of concrete flying from the chimney and ejecting through the windows.
And because so much power will be unleashed during the demolition, the team have to add a secondary layer of protection called Teram, a lightweight textile that's incredibly strong. Night falls, 2 days down and only 2 days left. It's the day before demolition. The blowdown's fast approaching, and Mick's thoughts turn to the possibility of failure.
The main problem is to make sure they drop in the right place. I mean, if one of these went off sideways or something, we'd have a catastrophe. We've got a main road straight across. If the other one went back through the power lines, we've got houses close by. Being as tall as they are, if they fell the wrong way totally, you know, we'd have big problems then. It's never happened before, and we don't expect it to, but that's the worst problem that could have happened.
Coming up in part 2, has the team's reputation gone up in smoke?
It's not perfect, so I'm disappointed. If it don't go 100% right, I always am.
Blyth chimneys, the day before one of the biggest synchronized demolitions ever attempted. They've been drilled, filled, and protected. If all goes well, the demolition will see the 4 chimneys taken out in the following sequence, each one having the front wall blasted off to allow it to fall in the right direction. On site, all that's left now is for the team to start linking up, and Dick's 25 years of military service in places like the Falklands and Bosnia is coming in handy.
When I was in the army during the war, they teach you in the engineers to strip your gun in the dark, to defuse bombs in the dark, and for some reason to tie knots in the dark, and to tie knots behind your back, and to tie knots with your eyes closed, and all that. And you do all your training, you do tying knots, and I thought, why the hell am I ever going to need to tie knots in quickly? And the old drill instructor, I suppose, from 30 years ago, I should thank him for showing me how to tie knots or making me tie knots fast. I knew it'd come in handy one day.
The 12 noon Sunday deadline is fast approaching. And inside the chimneys, the topic of conversation turns to a worrying matter. The team has only 3 firing devices, but there are 4 chimneys to detonate. So they'll have to swap one mid-demolition.
Tomorrow morning, probably 10 minutes to go, it'd be interesting, I would think. But now we've talked about it, how we're going to do it. We'll be all 3 of us firing something. I'll probably fire the first one, and Dick or Holly fire the second and third, and then I'll have linked up the exploder to the 4th one, ready to fire that one. It'll go all right, but it'll be pretty twitchy, I would think.
Providing Mick doesn't fumble with his fingers or trip over or anything, it'll be okay.
The team have a lot on their mind, and there's just over 12 hours to go. The final protective measures are put in place on the site. Nothing is left to chance. Demolition day, 8 in the morning. Contractors Brown and Mason take charge of the evacuation.
Right then, ours is the first operation. I have to say it's the most important operation. Whether they come down or not is immaterial to us. What we have to do is make sure that we've got everyone accounted for out of all those houses. We're going to make sure that everyone's up and awake and ready to go, whilst the police will just carry on and do your general patrols, leaving most of the work to us at the moment. If there does seem to be any kind of resistance whatsoever, that is when we call on our friends the police, and then they will come in and back us up for that.
There's only 2 hours to clear the 70 houses situated within the exclusion zone.
Go on in. On your way out, if you just tell her or you just catch a man's attention, he'll sign you off to the...
As far as I know, the bands weren't even there last night. They were down at his mother's.
So they're going to leave at 10:30. Just keep an eye for them.
On site, the team are applying the finishing touches.
What we're doing now is we're going through the 4 chimneys. We're doing the final tying up of the detonating cord, linking it all together and putting on the detonators and the starter reels. You've done it all before, and as I've said before, you're the most important people on this site. If you come up and say there's somebody in the zone, there's something you're not sure about, even if it's 20 seconds to go, we will stop it. Nobody's going to give you a hard time. We will stop it, we will check, and then we'll go through the system again. If these don't come down at 12 o'clock, it's not the end of the world. If they don't come down, it's not the end of the world. It's egg on our face, it'll cost us money, but it's not the end of the world. If these come down and some kiddie gets hurt or injured, then it is.
Just 1 hour left. Mix under pressure.
Getting all the starters out now, doing the final connections in about 15 minutes once the road's closed. So just running the lines out now to the firing point. Stomach's starting to churn a bit at the moment. Making sure everything's right. We've got final checks to do, make sure the evacuation's all done. Just wait for the police, give us a go-ahead then once the rolling roadblocks are in place.
All clear on the estate, But for the team, the tension's increasing.
Warming up, warming up.
And even now, Mick's got his hands full.
Hi, David. Aye, bit manic, mate, bit manic. Where are you? All right, mate, I've got to get up and put because I'm running lines out and stuff. I'll speak to you after blowdown.
Number 20.
And just keep back away from this tube, please. The final charges, or the final links across the road now. So you won't be able to come right down there with me, all right?
There's only 30 minutes left till blowdown. And with the connection of the exploder, the final routine gets underway.
Siren on, Dick. Siren on. Siren on.
Never before has Blyth seen a demolition with so much resting on it.
I just press mine, and I'll shout fire Ollie. Shout fire Dick. Yeah.
The team's excellent reputation means this job should be no problem. But the size of the chimneys and the difficulty of the sequence means the result of the demolition will be hard to predict.
Let's go, Anthony.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep moving.
Fire Ollie. Fire Dick. Go on, yeah, go on, get over. Go on.
Just hold the road while I've gone off. It's all right. Nobody's to come in.
But an hour after the blowdown, there's no word from the team, and the all clear's still not been sounded.
Just got to be patient. There's nothing you can really
No,
do
no.
about it.
It's a hard thing to ask, isn't it? Keep patient.
My friend texted us from the school where all the other residents are. They're all staying at the school, and she says that there's bricks in the road and that, and they've got to clear all that up before they can go home.
One of the chimneys went slightly offline, and consequently, when it went offline, it hit the ground and caused some splatter. So although nothing went anywhere near the edge of the exclusion zone, what it has done is thrown some mud onto the road here and against the buildings at the back of the site. So what we're busy on with now is cleaning the area up.
20,000 tons of concrete have been brought to the ground in one of the largest synchronized demolitions ever. But this was the moment when one chimney went offline and devastated our camera.
We've got the first one that we dropped this way that was supposed to go, it's swung off about 20 degrees, something like that. That's why we've got a lot more debris in the road than we anticipated, and we've caused a bit of cosmetic damage to Winagens, porta cabins and things like that over there. The one at the back has swung off the other way. It's gone about 15 degrees to the right, and it's done a little bit of damage to National Grid. We've cracked one of the pots insulators on top of the transformer, and we've also smashed a couple of windows and put a few holes in the shed. To cause any damage is disappointing. We did get a lot of splatter when it hit the deck. We were expecting that, but if we'd have kept them online, we wouldn't have caused any damage, I don't think. We'd have still got a bit of spillage onto the road. It's not perfect, so I'm disappointed. If it don't go 100% right, I always am.
A downbeat Mick remains on site, whilst outside, it's the start of a new era for the town as life starts getting back to normal.
Overall, it's a good job. This has been a job that's taken 3 years overall. It's a spectacular event at the end, 4 big chimneys like this. Fairly tight site with the National Grid on one side and the road on the other. So we ought to be absolutely elated, but I'm just still a bit disappointed.
Bye, Ollie. Bye, Dick.
Controlled Demolition's years of work at the power station are finally over. The team may be disappointed, but this was a major achievement. The chimneys are down, no one was injured, and Blyth's skyline will never be the same.